Have you ever been at a party, surrounded by laughter and conversation, and felt like you were watching a movie rather than being in the room? You're smiling, you're nodding, you're saying the right things, but inside you feel like an alien biologist studying human behavior. You feel a strange, cold distance between yourself and the rest of the world. You're not necessarily shy, and you're not sad, but you are perpetually outside. You are the observer. In the next 20 minutes, we are going to explore the deep psychology of why you feel like a spectator in your own life, the hidden trauma that creates this glass wall, and why being an outsider might be your brain's ultimate defense mechanism against a world it doesn't trust. In psychology, this feeling of being an outsider is often linked to a phenomenon called the spectator ego. Instead of experiencing life through your senses, you experience it through your thoughts. While others are feeling the moment, you are analyzing it. You're wondering why that person laughed, why the music feels too loud, or how you look to everyone else in the room. This constant meta-analysis creates a massive barrier to intimacy. You can't connect with others because you are too busy observing the connection itself. You aren't just an outsider to the group, you have become an outsider to your own physical body. You are a mind floating in a room, waiting for a signal to finally belong that never seems to come. This observer status often starts in childhood. In developmental psychology, we see this in children who had to become hyper-aware of their environment to stay safe. If you grew up in a home where moods were unpredictable, you learned to read the room before you entered it. You learned to watch for the subtle shift in a parent's tone or the tension in a sibling's shoulders. You didn't have the luxury of just being. You had to be a monitor. Now, as an adult, that survival skill has stayed turned on. You can't stop observing because deep in your subconscious, you believe that if you stop watching, you'll be blindsided. Your outsider status isn't a personality trait. It's a permanent state of high alert. There is a fascinating biological component here involving social baseline theory. Most people's brains assume that being with others is the default state of safety, but for the observer, the brain views being alone as the baseline. When you enter a social space, your brain sees it as a high-energy, high-risk environment. To save energy, you detach. You pull back behind that glass wall. This is why you feel so exhausted after social interactions, even when they go well. You weren't just hanging out. You were conducting a high-level psychological surveillance of every person in the room. You were tired because you were working as a full-time analyst in a world that just wants you to be a participant. The rise of digital psychology in 2026 has made this observer feeling an epidemic. We spend hours every day observing lives through screens, lives that are curated, edited, and fake. This trains the brain to think that life is something to be watched, not lived. We have become a society of voyeurs. When you finally step into the real world, you find it messy, slow, and unpredictable. It doesn't have a pause button or a comment section. Because you can't control the feed of real life, you retreat back into the role of the outsider. You stay in the corner of the room, mentally scrolling through the people around you, looking for the same distance and safety that your phone provides. But there is a specific pain in being the observer. It's the loneliness of the witness. You see everything. You see the subtle sadness in your friend's eyes that no one else notices. You see the fake smiles and the hidden tensions. Because you see so much truth, you feel even more disconnected from the polite lies of social interaction. You feel like you know too much to ever truly fit in. You wonder if anyone will ever observe you with the same depth that you observe them. You are waiting for someone to look past the glass wall and pull you through, but because you look so composed and analytical on the outside, people assume you want to be left alone. The ultimate trap of the observer is the intellectualization defense. You tell yourself that being an outsider makes you smarter, more objective, or above the drama. You use your psychology facts and your observations as a shield, but this is a lonely victory. Psychology tells us that belonging is a biological necessity, not a luxury. By staying an outsider, you are starving your nervous system of the co-regulation it needs to heal. You aren't above the room. You were just afraid to be in it. You were afraid that if you step out from behind the glass, you will be seen for who you really are, and that you might not know how to handle the raw, unedited intensity of being truly known. So how do you break the glass? How do you stop being the outsider looking in? It requires a radical shift from analysis to sensation. You have to practice dropping the clipboard. When you feel yourself starting to analyze a social moment, you have to intentionally pull your focus into your senses. What does the air feel like? What is the physical weight of your feet on the floor? You have to give yourself permission to be stupid and present instead of smart and detached. You have to realize that the people you are watching aren't a movie. They are your only bridge back to yourself. The transition from observer to participant is terrifying because it requires you to give up control. You can't control how a movie ends when you are sitting in the audience, but you have no power at all. To have power in your life, you have to be on the stage, where things are loud, where people might judge you, and where you might fail. The urge to stay an outsider is a craving for safety, but nothing grows in total safety. Your life is happening right now, in the messy center of the room, not in the quiet shadows of your mind. It's time to stop taking notes and start taking part. It's time to stop watching the world and let the world watch you. This distance you feel isn't just a social preference. It is a neurological state known as dissociative spectatorship. When your brain feels that the emotional cost of participation is too high, it creates a mental buffer zone. Think of it as a psychological firewall. You see the data, you hear the voices, but the emotional impact is filtered out before it can reach your core. This is why you can be in a room full of people celebrating and feel absolutely nothing. You are physically there, but your emotional self is miles away, tucked safely behind a wall of logic. But here is the danger. The longer you stay in this state, the more your brain loses the ability to switch back. You start to forget how to feel, even when you are alone. We must look at the mirroring paradox specifically for the observer. Most people use mirroring to bond. They unconsciously mimic the gestures and tones of others to create a social bridge. But as an observer, you use mirroring as a camouflage. You are so good at reading people that you can mimic their energy perfectly just to avoid being noticed as different. You are a chameleon. You blend in so well that no one suspects you feel like an outsider. But this creates a deep, aching identity crisis. If you are constantly mirroring everyone else to stay safe, who are you when the lights go out and the room is empty? The observer is often a person with 1,000 masks but no face of their own.
Let's talk about the spotlight effect and how it tortures the observer. Even though you feel like an outsider looking in, you are simultaneously terrified that everyone is looking at you. You feel like you're on a stage under a burning light, and every micro mistake you make is being recorded by the same analytical lens you use on others. This creates a paralyzing feedback loop. You watch them, you think they are watching you, and the tension becomes so unbearable that you retreat even further into your mind. You become a prisoner of your own awareness. This is the hyper-self-consciousness that prevents you from ever reaching a state of flow in your social life. You are too busy being your own harshest critic to ever be your own best friend. There is a concept in psychoanalysis called the false self. The observer builds a false self that is highly competent, quiet, and reliable. This is the version of you that goes to work, handles the bills, and listens to other people's problems. Because you are such a good observer, you know exactly what people want to hear. You become the perfect listener. But notice the pattern. You are always the one listening, never the one being heard. You are the one solving the crisis, never the one having it. By playing the role of the stable observer, you have inadvertently trained the people in your life to ignore your needs. You have built a life where you are essential to everyone, yet known by no one. Consider the echo chamber of the mind. When you stop participating in the give and take of real life, your only conversation partner is yourself, and your internal voice is biased. It tells you that people are judging you. It tells you that you are fundamentally different or broken in a way that others aren't. In psychology, we call this othering yourself. You have created a narrative where humanity is a club that you don't have a membership for. But this is a cognitive distortion. The truth is that most people in that room feel just as insecure and disconnected as you do. They just aren't observing it as intensely. They are too busy stumbling through their own lives to notice your alien status. You are feeling alone in a room full of people who are also feeling alone, but your glass wall prevents you from seeing the shared struggle. The tragedy of the observer in 2026 is that the world has finally built a cage that fits your trauma perfectly. We have entered the era of the digital window syndrome. Every time you open an app, you are practicing being an outsider. You are looking into the intimate moments of strangers, analyzing their homes, their relationships, and their failures from a safe, untouchable distance. This has created a neurological callus. Your brain is becoming so accustomed to observing life through a screen that when you are faced with a real, breathing human being, your nervous system doesn't know how to engage. It only knows how to scan. You are losing the muscle memory of presence. You have become a professional witness in a world that is starving for participants. There is a concept in psychosociology called pluralistic ignorance. It's the idea that everyone in a group is feeling the same way, but because no one is speaking up, everyone assumes they are the only ones with that thought. As an observer, you are the victim of this daily. You look at a group of people laughing and you think, they belong and I don't. But if you could look inside their minds, you would see the same observer voice whispering to them. You would see the same fear of being found out, the same exhaustion from performing. Your outsider status is actually a shared human experience, but because you stay behind the glass, you never get to trade that secret with anyone else. You are holding a map to a treasure chest that you refuse to open because you're afraid the chest is empty.
Let's look at the mirror neuron exhaustion specific to the outsider. While the participant is recharging through the energy of the group, the observer is discharging. You are picking up on every micro-expression, every subtle eye roll, and every awkward silence. This is cognitive overprocessing. Your brain is running a supercomputer-level simulation of every social interaction in real time. This is why you feel a sudden, violent urge to go home and sit in a dark room. It's not that you hate people, it's that your social radar is so sensitive that it's burning out your circuits. You have turned the simple act of human connection into a high-stakes intelligence mission. There is also the safety of the periphery. Being an outsider is a lonely life, but it's a predictable one. If you never fully enter the room, you can never be fully kicked out. If you never truly give your heart to a moment, that moment can never break you. This is the psychology of half-living. You are hedging your bets against pain, but in doing so, you're also hedging your bets against joy. You are living your life in the gray zone, a place where nothing is too bad, but nothing is ever truly good. You are waiting for a version of yourself to arrive that is ready to participate. But psychology tells us that the ready version of you is a myth. You don't become ready by watching, you become ready by bleeding, laughing, and failing in the center of the arena. The observer often suffers from what we call chronesthesia, or mental time travel. Even when you are in the present moment, your mind is either in the past, analyzing what you just said, or in the future, predicting how this interaction will end. You are never now. This constant displacement is why you feel like a ghost. To be a ghost is to be a memory of the past or a shadow of the future, but never a solid object in the present. You are ghosting yourself every time you choose an analytical thought over a physical sensation. You are choosing the map over the territory and then wondering why you feel lost in the woods. The most profound secret of the observer is that your outsider perspective is actually your greatest untapped gift. In psychology, we know that those who stand on the periphery see the patterns that those in the center miss. You have a heightened sensitivity to truth. You can see the beauty in the mundane and the cracks in the fake. But this gift only becomes a superpower when you decide to bring it into the room. The world doesn't need more people who are fitting in. It needs people who can see deeply and still choose to connect. Your outsider status isn't a life sentence of loneliness, it is an invitation to offer a perspective that no one else has. You're not broken, you're just a high-resolution sensor in a low-resolution world. To stop being the outsider, you must embrace the psychology of the first move. The glass wall only shatters from the inside. You have been waiting for someone to invite you in, to notice your silence, and to validate your presence. But as an observer, you look so self-sufficient and detached that no one thinks you need an invitation. You have to be the one to bridge the gap. It starts with a simple, terrifying act of vulnerability disclosure.
Tell someone, I feel a bit out of place here. Watch how quickly the glass wall vanishes when you name it. By admitting you are an outsider, you immediately become an insider in the most human experience of all, the fear of not belonging. We must also confront the archive of regret. If you remain an outsider for your entire life, you will end up with a library of notes about a life you never actually lived. You will have a perfect intellectual understanding of love, of career, and of adventure, but you will have none of the scars that make those things real. In the psychology of aging, the greatest pain is not the mistakes we made, but the moments we watched pass by without stepping in. You have to decide today that you are finished being a biographer of other people's stories. It is time to start writing your own, even if the handwriting is messy and even if the plot is unpredictable. This is the reclamation of the self. It requires you to stop monitoring and start manifesting. You have to trust that your physical presence is enough. You don't need to be interesting, you don't need to be useful, and you certainly don't need to be perfect. You just need to be there. When you catch yourself drifting back into the spectator seat, physically ground yourself. Feel the temperature of the air around you, hear the specific pitch of the voices around you, and force yourself to contribute one unfiltered thought. Each time you do this, you are reclaiming a piece of your humanity from the void of observation. The era of the outsider is ending because it's no longer sustainable. We are all starving for something real, something raw, and something unobserved. By stepping out from behind your wall, you give others permission to do the same. You are not an alien, you are not a mistake, and you are not an outsider. You are a human being who has been watching for too long. The movie is over, the lights are up. It's time to leave the theater and walk out into the sunlight of your own life. You've seen enough. Now it's time to be seen. Thank you for being part of this deep dive today. If you felt like I was describing your own internal world, you're not alone. This channel is a space for the observers, the thinkers, and the ones who feel different to find their way back to connection. Subscribe and join us because the first step to belonging is realizing that there are others out here looking for the same way in. Stop watching your life from the sidelines. I'll see you in the center of the next one.